All right, welcome into another edition of the Unbearable podcast. I'm Ryan Voss. With me, as always, is Drew Testa. Drew, how you doing?
Not too bad. This is the perfect time. I know we said we were going to come back a little bit earlier, but I'm actually glad we waited because now moves are actually being made. So I feel like this is the perfect time to come back on here.
Yeah, we're recording this podcast after Khalil Mack has been traded to the Chargers for a 2022 second-round pick and a 2023 sixth-round pick. Eddie Goldman has been cut and Tariq Cohen has been cut. So the Bears that we once knew aren't the Bears anymore. This is officially Ryan Poles' Bears. He's making all the moves. He's assembling his own roster the way he wants it to. What are your reaction to these trades and cuts?
So the Mac one, I will still stand by this. I don't think we got enough value for him at all. And there's really nothing anyone can do to convince me otherwise. If it was like a second and a fourth even, I would like at least somewhat understand why they did the dump. But you're getting a second round pick, which is decent. That's a decent pick. And then a 6th-round pick next year. That might as well be like pretty much nothing. Like, what are the odds that we hit on that? Honestly. The Cohen cutting, I think it was warranted. I'm not gonna complain about that. Plus, when you trade Mack, you can kind of see like the red herring. Other move. It's not don't make that move by itself. And he hasn't played in 2 years, so I'm not really concerned about that. Goldman, I was a little bit surprised just because he's still like a young player and he had some years of control, but I just hope he has a plan, and I'm sure he did, but I hope he discussed it with Eberflus because he just took away 2 of the best players on his defense. And, when you're a defensive coach, that can't make you too happy unless you're okay with it. So I just really hope he talked to him about it first.
No, I definitely think that these two are working in tandem. Ryan Poles would not make these moves without Eberflus and consulting the rest of the defensive staff. You got to remember that a lot of the guys on this staff were also the guys down with the Colts with Eberflus. So there's the scheme change. Eddie Goldman doesn't necessarily fit in the new scheme. And Eberflus has been able to have top 5, top 10 defenses without premier level pass rusher like Khalil Mack. He's never I think he's only had 1 double-digit pass rusher in like the last 4 years or so. So like his defenses don't need to rely on that to be good. All 3 of these guys are guys that haven't really been contributors the last 2 years.
The microphone like closer to your mouth or something. It's like fading in and out.
I'll lean in. That was happening last podcast too. All 3 of the guys that have been traded or cut haven't really been contributors the last 2 years. Tariq Cohen hurt. Eddie Goldman set out with COVID, and then he came back last year. Like, I didn't really notice him all too much. He wasn't really a difference maker. He regressed. Khalil Mack, both his seasons, he's been hurt. He was looking back like the old Khalil Mack last year. Him and Robert Quinn are a great duo. I think he had 6 sacks in 7 games. So, he was on, he still's got it when he's healthy. But that's the problem. He hasn't been healthy his entire time in Chicago.
Yeah, he has dealt with injuries, which sucks, obviously, because we all know the type of player he is when he's out there. To your point about Goldman, he's a nose tackle. They're not always the players that are going to jump off the screen. So I can understand that. And one thing I will say about Eberflus's defense is it's that pass rush, not having top-level guys, is a lot easier to skin by when you have a player like Darius Leonard in the linebacker core, and those players aren't easy to come by. So I hope they're going to have to really hit on their draft picks because we pretty much just disintegrated the roster. And I get it freed up a lot of cap space, but drafting is the way you build. Like, the NFL teams really don't build through free agency. They kind of just add a few pieces when they're on the cusp. So it's really going to come down to how good is Poles at drafting.
So this is something that we have, I'm sure, said on this podcast. I'm sure we've probably tweeted. I know for sure that we said in like our group chat or just texting amongst each other. But we said is the Bears can get rid of everyone as long as they keep Roquan Smith, Darnell Mooney, Justin Fields, and Jalen Johnson. Besides that, everyone's fair game. We've said that before. So I don't think we should be too upset. Now that these moves are actually happening, we knew this was going to happen. We expected it. We kind of wanted it to happen, just kind of a fresh start. You mentioned the cap space. Yeah, we don't have a ton this year. All that cap space we're freeing up is going to be in 2023, and it's projected like over 130 million. That's like an insane amount of cap space. But some of that cap space that was projected for next year could be used this year. So I do expect them to make moves. And right now they're getting rid of defensive guys. And the reason being is they need to invest in their offense. They need to surround Justin Fields with top caliber players, so that way he can grow and develop and become his true potential. We're not going to win with that defense. When we win, Khalil Mack's not going to be here. Eddie Goldman wouldn't have been here. We need to win with the offense and build this team around Justin Fields. So that's why I think we made those moves. We're shifting from a defensive team to an offensive team.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the way things are now. You're not going to win. You got to be able to win shootouts if you want to win. We were never going to be able to do that as constructed. So that makes a lot of sense. It's just as a fan, it's hard to see these guys, some of these guys go, as Max specifically, because of what we know they are. But we can't really say, yeah, there you go. The Eddie Goldman thing, I do think he was kind of overpaid for the position he played in the scheme we ran. Like, there's really no reason to give someone like that much money. It's kind of like paying a running back. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But one thing I will say about Poles is he's betting on himself. If what he wants to do doesn't work, he has absolutely no one to blame but himself. So I like the confidence he's displaying. I just hope that his work fits the bill.
We're recording this. Next week is when free agency begins. I would expect Ryan Poles to make some moves, to make big moves. Like, I would not be at all surprised if he goes after an Amari Cooper or a Teron Armstead or someone of that caliber. Who's the guard from Tampa? Ryan Jensen, right? Is that the guy?
Yeah, I think he's a center, but yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Poles is making these moves. He wants to come in. He wants to bring in his guys and make a put his flag in the ground and make a statement. I think he's making these moves so he has the capability to do that next week, so he can make this roster his own. We've already seen that by trading away 3 of Ryan Pace's marquee players. So I would expect next week to be a rather big week for the Bears. I hope I'm not getting my hopes up, but that's the way I kind of see it right now.
Well, they have to do something, right? Because they have to assemble 53 NFL caliber players no matter what they do. So they can't just not pick up anyone. Now, they could go out here and pick up a bunch of bums, but I don't see them doing that. Regardless of if you're trying to rebuild and take a season where you're not really going to be competitive, you still don't want to go out in your first year and put a non-competitive team on the field. That's not a good look for a first-time head coach, first-time GM. So I definitely think you're right. They're going to try to get some talent. I just hope that the moves they make aren't lateral. Like, I don't want to trade Khalil Mack and then overpay for a subpar pass rusher. The moves you make have to make sense.
Yeah. One thing I guess we're kind of already moving on from Khalil Mack. There's not much to say other than the Bears did what they did. You could love it, you could hate it. I personally would rather have the top 50 pick and free up cap space the next couple of years. Like I said, I don't believe when we win, Khalil Mack would be here. He's getting older. He's got an injury history. His value is just going to go down. So take what we can for him and move on. I mean, there will always be that era that Khalil Mack was in Chicago. Just because he's gone, I know you posted that TikTok yesterday. What am I supposed to do with this jersey now? I know you were probably joking a little bit, but we could still love Mack and we could still appreciate those good days. So right now, it's just a new era. It's the Ryan Poles era. This is going to happen when we have a new GM and a new coach coming in. This is giving me a lot of vibes from 7 years ago in 2015. This afternoon, I was at the gym listening to Drake, catching up on Bears news. The exact same thing I did in 2015. It was just kind of eerie that it was like deja vu. Here we go again, and I'm now really excited for free agency.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting time because there are so many question marks about the roster and who's going to be on it and who's not. Now, I don't think they're done making moves, honestly. I could easily see players like not Roquan Smith, Robert Quinn and Eddie Jackson, seeing what their market's like.
I got a surprise one for you.
Okay.
David Montgomery.
Oh, I mean, he's still on his rookie contract, isn't he?
We drafted him 2018, third round pick. So 18, 19, or 2019, 2021. This is his last year on his rookie deal. In the NFL, you don't pay running backs. If there's a market out there for him, I would take it. See what you got with Khalil Herbert. He could probably take over as lead back and then get some other guys just to fill. Running backs are like a dime a dozen. You could get production from anyone. We've seen that with Jeremy Langford.
Yeah, and that was even before. Even since then, the league and the view of running backs has changed so drastically. Yeah, I mean, if you pick a running back in the 4th, 5th round, put him on the field, odds are you're not going to really notice the difference. Like, even with the Rams, we saw them use Darrell Henderson. He was playing fine, and then they kind of switched midseason, went to Sony Michel. He was doing good. And then at the end, Cam Akers was coming off an Achilles injury. He became the lead back, and he was doing just as good as the other two. So they really are just a dime a dozen. But I think they'll use up that one last year of Montgomery before. Because really, what is realistically someone going to trade for Montgomery? No more than like a 4th or 5th round pick. You might as well use up his legs for one more year, get what you can out of him, and then just dump him off.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't know. It's just a new era. That's all I got. Those are all my thoughts right now. Do you have anything different?
You basically just summed it up. The Bears that we've come to get used to are gone. Like the last couple of years of the Bears, it's generations. This generation of Bears football, the Ryan Pace, Matt Nagy, Trubisky, Mack, whatever you want to call it, era is dead, and we're gonna have to start again and see what this era brings us. That's really all we could do at this time.
There was a tweet that there's only 5. I want to see if I can find it real quick. There's only 5 players that were on the 100-year roster from 2.5 years ago. So, I mean, this happened with Pace. The only player, by the end of Pace's tenure who Pace did not put on the roster himself was Pat O'Donnell. Everyone else he put on. So, Quick Foles do the same thing. He's going to keep Mooney. He's already said he loves him, but they're going to extend Roquan. They now have plenty of money. There's no reason not to do it. Jalen Johnson's probably one of those guys, but everyone else is fair game. Don't expect them. Don't get too attached with them being on the roster going forward. And that's clear that he's coming in and he's clearing house with trading Mack, cutting Goldman, cutting Cohen.
Yeah, he's building it from the ground up. So we're really gonna see his philosophy. That's something we talked about in the last episode we did. We're gonna get a chance to see his philosophy and what he values early on, and that point has just been multiplied by a lot because he's getting rid of pretty much every player on the roster that is getting paid. So he's going to bring in his guys, and it's either going to work or it's not, but we're going to see here really, really soon who his guys are and the type of players he values.
I think those players, especially next week, is going to be on offense. We got to surround them around fields. We'll definitely be back with an episode next week. There's been a ton of NFL news even before free agency starts. News that the Bears have been involved in. But next week, once the free agency window opens, we'll see, who the Bears get, where Allen Robinson winds up. Maybe he ends up back on the Bears for like a 1-year deal because he doesn't have the market he wants to. Kind of similar to the deal that Juju took last year. But, I wouldn't mind that. We'll see what happens. Any other closing thoughts?
Yeah. One last thing. I remember when we picked up Ryan Pace. I don't know. You probably remember this too. The first move he made, free agency wise, picking up Lamar Houston. It's the name a lot of people might not know. So at the very least, I have a lot of faith that Ryan Poles' first free agency move will be better than Ryan Pace's.
I don't think that was. Are you thinking Pernell McPhee?
No, I think he was later, but I think Houston was the first one. I know McPhee was there too, but I'm pretty sure they signed Lamar Houston first.
Lamar Houston came in at the same time as Jared Allen, so that was 2014 before Pace.
Oh, okay. That was the other guys last year. Okay.
But Pernell McPhee was Pace's first marquee signing. They paid him a bunch of money. He was supposed to be what Bears football was. And McPhee flashed for a little bit, but
his first year with us was
player.
Yeah.
We'll see what Ryan Poles is. Maybe I'm hoping Amari Cooper or top offensive lineman, but I might have to temper my expectations.
Yeah, I don't see them going all in this early, honestly.
All right, well, this has been another edition of Unbearable Podcast. We will definitely be back next week to talk about all the moves and free agency. Take it easy.